Welcome once again, Atlanta United family. Here once again with our boy Tommy. He was not able to be here with us Sunday, unfortunately. Well, fortunate for him because he was there at the game in Cincinnati and had a good time to what I'm hearing. And we're just glad to have him back here with us again, once again. And Tommy, we're here, basically recapping, what this season has been for Atlanta United. And the second part will basically be like what the expectations are for Atlanta United these throughout these playoffs. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with you. If any of you guys that are watching um have any questions or have any comments, regarding like the regular season or now going into playoffs, hit us up. Any questions, you're free to ask anything. So tell me what are your overall thoughts about the regular season from beginning to end, just overall.
Alcoholism. Uh, what a year. It's literally been just so many ups and downs. You get Heinze, and it's like the biggest coaching guy coming in a long time. At least I saw what was going on in Atlanta news, but like you looked at like MLS and like this was a huge signing. You started off, the whole off season like, all right, we didn't make the playoffs. Joseph's having, his surgery. He's going to be back. Everything's going to be fantastic, and it just didn't work out. Early on, you saw some signs that things were okay, but players got tired so quick from all the running and lack of water. Uh, but it was, you get rid of them, and you slowly start seeing things get better. Um, I it feels like the season has lasted 2 years. To be honest with you, I feel like we've been in so many different seasons. We had the Heinze season, we had the Rob Valentino season. It was very short, and then you've had so many international breaks throughout this, and now and then you get the Pineda, and then now you're in the playoffs, and God, this season has just gone on and on. What a terrible season for this just to continue going, because it's just been so exhausting with all the drama. We can't forget the Joseph drama. A Friday afternoon, or a Thursday afternoon, you see the tweet that Joseph's like, maybe I should just go, maybe I should just get out of here, and it's me or Heinze. Like you talk about the season, you think about the season, and there's just always something that like you forget because so much happened.
Right.
We had Hyman, then we didn't have Hyman. He got hurt in practice, which there was rumors that he was worked too hard, um, during practice, and that was an injury that didn't need to happen. So we've been without Hyman. Just been exhausting. And then we finally started going upwards, and I don't know about you, but like the last three games have just felt downward.
It
Um,
did. It did.
you've had draws that probably shouldn't have been draws. I mean, the Red Bulls game didn't feel like a loss or a win. It just felt like
We got out of
the
it.
worst game ever. It felt like the worst. Like it felt like if you wanted to tell someone like, "Here, watch soccer for the first time." No, you don't want to watch this. This is absolutely terrible. And then Cincinnati, um, I was glad I was drunk at the game for that, because that first half was garbage. That was like, I understand, and the Red Bulls have been up and down all season. So, and it's Red Bulls at home. So Atlanta's never been able to figure out the press ever. But you get to Cincinnati, you're like, all right, we're going to be able to control the play. We're going to be able to move up at will. Couldn't do anything. That first half, it was terrible. And like you just saw that goal coming, from a mile away. Like they kept slowly creeping up, and you've got five in the back, and they're still, there's so much space for them to still come up and attack. So when it was going to halftime, I was like, well, they're either gonna come back and win this, or they're gonna lose 3-0. Um, but yeah, it was nice to see them come back. But now the question is what formation do you do in the playoffs? But to answer your question, I mean, what a season! I mean, you could write a full biography on everything that's happened. We got to hope for a drama free, 2022, because and they announced that, right? I mean that's they've already talked about it starting early, which that I think
Yeah.
they did that 2 years ago where we started on that was the day Joseph got hurt, well, like on
Yeah,
February
February
31st or 30th,
28th. Yeah.
29th, 29th, yeah.
There's no
Yeah, so
February 20. There's no February 30th.
yeah, 29, yeah. I'm a little out of it today. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. Like, it's just interesting to see. Like, all right, we're gonna get an early season. They want to get it done. Like, I feel like we're getting back to normal. Like this, the schedule's nice. And then, like, I thought I saw with the schedule, and getting off topic, but like, there's like no midweek games. Like, there's only like 4 midweek games the entire season. Like, that is awesome. Like these MLS players, and I mean, it's around the entire league or the entire world basically. Players are beat up. They're tired. Um, this is a great time though for Atlanta United to have a break. You got 2 weeks to figure out and get healthy. So is that practice today, which was great.
Moreno was
Um,
not, to what I heard. He said out.
yeah, I read that about Moreno not being at practice today, and when you got a foot injury, I mean, I sprained my foot like a couple weeks ago just jogging, and they tell you like stay off of it as much as you can, keep it elevated, stay off of it. And I think they said it's just a pain issue for him, and like they're just trying to get him back to normal. So I don't expect to see him at practice probably until like next Wednesday, in my opinion. Like keep him off his foot, just keep doing as many things you can. And like I thought I heard it was toe, like it wasn't like foot. It was, I mean, obviously the toes on the foot, but um, a toe injury, like especially if it's the big toe, like that's some painful stuff. So just keep them healthy because we're going to Red Bull Arena, or not Red Bull Arena. We should be in Red Bull Arena. I was hoping it was in Red Bull Arena. We're going
Yeah,
to
go.
Yankee Stadium. That's why you wear your baseball hat, right? Get ready for
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, hopefully, man, we're able to pull off some of that brave magic, away from home.
Yeah, you know, and you can't dwell, and we're talking about the season, but you look at about how many games we've blown. We've blown game in Nashville, the home game at Nashville. I think that was early on in the season. We blew a game there, and then I think
We
we
tied
blew the
one
New
at
York
home
game.
too, 2-2. We were up two and at home. I remember when there was two late goals and they ended up coming back. But it's definitely, like you said, it's been like different parts of the season where you think, it's just been like two or three different, seasons. But it's interesting, now going into playoff time. Hopefully, I've been seeing, or reading around Twitter, and a lot of these reporters or what are saying is like, they're seeing a little bit more intensity in practice, but I mean, I don't know. When it comes to Atlanta United, you just don't know if they're gonna come out, on the front foot. It's just one of those games where, they're just gonna come out, playing vertical, going forward. They're just gonna get pressed, something, similar to what happened in Red Bull Arena, where I mean, there was just no answer to that. Literally, like the
No,
whole 90 minutes.
yeah. I mean, we could, and I see Joshua chimed in about Moreno not uh, practicing. Josh, I would say if he doesn't practice like next Thursday or Friday, that's when you have a legit concern. But I think they're just gonna keep resting that foot as long as they can. I mean, if you could rest it for a full week, he should be in good in good standing here. Um, but yeah, we don't really know what to expect from Atlanta here in the playoffs. I keep hearing about Pineda being the tactical genius, um, and I don't know if I've seen that. Like
Mhm.
the formation that we've been in for a while, it works sometimes, but when it doesn't, they make some changes at halftime, but in playoffs, you have one bad half and you're out.
Yeah,
Um, and I think them not being able to have the home match sucks for them because it's very likely that if they're going to win MLS Cup, they're going to win. They're going to have to go all 4 games on the road. I mean, unless you hope that there's a ton of upsets. But your first two matchups would be New York and New England, And New York, if you can get past New York, and this people probably bash me for saying this, but in my experience, at least of watching other sports where you've got a team that's just so dominant in the regular season, like New England, and haven't had anything to play for a while. They haven't. And uh, they got a bye week, so they get another extra week. These guys that basically have it are going to be a little rusty after 3 weeks off.
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. I know where you're heading to with that. Yeah.
So I think there's a real opportunity that if they could get past New York, that they've got a chance. And you go back and you look at the New England games, and they were some pretty bad. I think the first game that happened early in the season, there was like that weird. There was a penalty that wasn't a penalty that they called. And I think all the goals in that game were like all penalties. I think Moreno scored, and then there was 2 goals. I think both goals by New England was that. And then there was another game, and it was a real boring game. I think that one was like a 1-0 game or something like that. So I don't think we've gotten destroyed by New England. Um, but if you look at like even earlier on before, decision day, that week before they played Orlando and they benched all their guys. Like they benched almost all their starters, and then what they were down 2-0, and then or maybe it was 1-0, or maybe it could have been 2-0, but then they put all their starters in and they came back and won. Or sorry, they drawed. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what as far as our expectations are of the playoffs here. I think you're just playing with house money at this point because I don't think any of us imagined we were going to be in the playoffs when we didn't win. What we didn't win in like 3 months,
Yeah, 2
and
wins in middle until the middle of July.
yeah, I mean that was I was at that game. I was when they won in Columbus. They ended the streak in Columbus. Yeah, I mean we're here now. We're in the playoffs. Like I have no expectations, and I think that's probably the greatest way of going in. Like a few years ago, when you walked into, or when you, like after they won even the MLS Cup season, you knew you had expectations that you should win this. You know what I mean? And we're still not healthy. We still are missing a bunch of guys. We're still missing Hyman. We're missing a fully healthy Joseph. We haven't talked about the Joseph goal yet, but I mean, there was just so much, you know, so many things to happen for.
I don't remember somebody tweeted and said that Joseph, only having a leg and a half scored like basically what half of the Golden Boot winner won or scored this season. And I mean, seriously, like I mean, if you look at it, if like seriously, if the a whole injury with Joseph would have not happened, I mean, we would have been looking at a whole different scenario. A lot of the guys that probably Luis Araujo would have probably never came. Players, it would have just been a whole different situation. But yeah, that day like literally like changed everything for Atlanta United. Joshua Simmons says here, something, that makes a lot of sense. And basically to what we were just saying, New England doesn't really scare me. Like past top Eastern Conference teams, they would have all the pressure. Yeah, like I remember like same thing happened in 2019. Like seriously, I remember New York City was the first seed and Atlanta was number 2. New York had that bye the first game, and when they came to the second round, they lost to I don't remember who. Oh, Philadelphia, Philly, yeah, because then
Mhm.
that's who Atlanta played afterwards. And I mean, like you say, I mean, it's just like they're not, they haven't had that, you know, they haven't had that fluidity, playing, how, it's like playing every week. And like you say, they haven't really been playing top teams. I mean, they've been playing Inter Miami, Orlando, and I mean, yeah, you could say, there are teams that, you know, I guess some games they just give it all, and then sometimes they just blow it all away. But I mean, it's just not top teams like from the Eastern Conference. Now if you're playing regularly against either Philadelphia or the New York Red Bulls, New York City, I mean, those are teams that are going to give you a fight, teams that are most likely gonna give you more to play for than Inter Miami or Nashville. Um,
Well, and I guess my question, if Josh is still around, is why don't they scare you? Because you got to say that what they have the most points ever. I think did they get to the most points
yeah,
ever
no,
in a
they
season?
did beat that record. Yeah, they did
S-
beat LAFC for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you got to respect them. I think they've had a fantastic season, but I think we saw what Bruce Arena said, something on the lines of like the supporter shield is
It's
shit basically
Yeah, it's
because
like a joke trophy because of the fact that they haven't played, top teams like, like the other guys like the Sounders and Kansas that they were also fighting for the supporter shield. And I mean, those guys, are playing top teams over there, and they over here in New England, they really haven't.
yeah, and I think that's always going to be the problem with this schedule. And I looked, and it's still very similar of what it's going to be from this year to next. But you've got you've got your ratings guys, right? You've got Atlanta always brings in ratings, Seattle, the LA teams. So they always want to put these teams against each other because it's gonna have a big rating for ESPN or ABC or whatever. Inter Miami's, despite them not being very good, they're still ratings guys. So they're gonna put a lot of teams like us again, the good teams against each other, which means then you're gonna get some, your interconference games are gonna be some bad teams playing each other, and it's just not there. Let's see, Josh. Eastern Conference is down, and plus they would have so much pressure. Sports Shield winners usually don't do anything in the playoffs, and I agree with that. Um, yeah, and I think Matt Turner, right? Matt Turner, is he?
He's not
He's
starting tomorrow.
he's not. It's
No, Zach Steffen, yeah.
yeah,
That's what I heard.
um,
From what I heard, yeah, Zach's the one starting tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah, I think that it's hard. I think in any sport, like in the NHL, usually the team that wins the President's Trophy, which is the best overall record, like hardly ever win the Stanley Cup. Like it's almost kind of like a curse, like the best
Right.
team. Like in baseball, sometimes you'll see that where you'll see the best overall team because they have, and a lot of those teams just have so much money. So that's why they do it. But NFL is the same thing.
You know what? I feel like that happens. One is because of lack of hunger. New England's already got a spot secured for the CONCACAF Champions League. So it's not like they have that pressure. Like teams like uh like Atlanta. Where they've invested a lot of money. They're a team that should be playing in CONCACAF Champions League, but that right now is the only chance that they have to be able to make it, till next year's CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah,
But
I agree, but you gotta you want to win, like I don't know, like if I'm a
no,
fan,
obviously
supporter
you would,
shield's cool. Like I
yeah.
guess it's fine, but like what's cool about it? Like you don't get the official, you don't get all the big praise of comparing it to MLS Cup, right? Like MLS Cup, you got all the merch that you have this and get to have a big, celebration. Like I don't know, I
You
haven't
don't get
seen anything too
you don't
crazy.
get the little pretty star on top of the crest.
No, you don't get anything. But you do get in Champions League. And for one, I am just very happy. I think they said that the Open Cup will not be in because there was no Open Cup again. Somehow, I don't think Atlanta gets in this year, and I'm thankful for that. To be honest with you, um, too much too much compression into the schedule, and these guys,
Those
as
midweek
much as I'd
games,
like to
man.
be in. Yeah, I hate the games. I hate the style of the games that happen in CONCACAF. Um, my first time watching CONCACAF after Atlanta won MLS Cup, I was like, "What are these refs? These refs are absolutely garbage." And then you have the guys that look World War II nurses running out with the little thing to put them on the gurney, and I was like, "This is terrible. Like this is like a whole other time. Like we went back in time to play games here. Like." I don't know. It's I'm glad we're not in that. Open Cup will be back next year though, so that's awesome. And then who knows? They might even put us in. What's that other? Or are they getting rid of the Leagues Cup next year? I don't even know if
That's 2023 when that should be starting. 2023 is when the League Cup starts.
well, what's that other thing then that they have? The other tournament that they had that means absolutely nothing.
It is the same thing as the League's Cup, though, like the one that
Okay.
Seattle played the final against Club Lyon or somebody. I don't remember who, but
The Cruz Azul? No. But anyway, I mean, so that's next. They still have the short one next year, right? The small
yeah, I
one.
believe so. Yeah, yeah, and then 2023 is when they like join or like they merge both MLS and Liga MX. So.
And I think they just pick teams randomly. Like I don't think there's ever been a like an actual science of who they pick.
Right,
Um,
because I mean, even this season, honestly, until like the whole thing kicked off, I actually had no clue that it was going on, and I was like, "All right, so how does this thing get decided? Like, who plays who? What team? Why the team's here?" I really didn't know, honestly.
yeah, so that makes sense. So I mean, I could see Atlanta being in it, just like how we say that they always get against the good teams. They'll probably put them in there because that's a rating monster for them, and especially with um, Atlanta having a lot of people that root for teams in Liga MX in the city, it could definitely bring in some ratings and some people into a big stadium too. Like you don't want to. No offense to some of these other stadiums out there, but you don't want them going into Cincinnati, right? And
Yankee
no
Stadium.
no one's gonna watch it. Yeah, yeah, no one's gonna watch it. But yeah, it's I'm thankful for a lot of things in this season, just overall. And we've got to see a lot of players get a lot of playing time, and it's going to be interesting to see all the decisions. And we've been talking about that, and who knows, we could be talking about this, in 2 weeks if the season's over, or we could delay this until December, and then we could talk about it. But it's going to be interesting to see, all the decisions we make. Escobar's still there; he's
Even in
still
the off
hanging.
season, man, until January, I mean, that's when, like the whole team, like, preseason starts and everything. And like you said earlier, with regular season starting earlier, I think if I'm not mistaken, because I think February 26th is when the regular season should be kicking off. So, I mean, you got what, 4, 6 weeks before that, So, yeah, January. And that's when, I feel like the whole team, I feel like, should be, put together or, whether Gonzalo wants some other players, coming in or some guys, end up leaving. I know there's a couple of guys that are going to be free agents by the end of the season. So I mean, most likely they're going to be gone. But when it comes to that, like I just feel like, uh, especially like you said with like the players that have gotten like playing time, the young guys and everything, like this season there wasn't much of a expectation, as far as how far we're gonna get into the playoffs or whether we win it all or whatever. But I mean, you look at it, and I mean, Atlanta United still has, I think, one of the top three youngest teams in MLS. So another thing that I was looking at on Twitter is like there's 6 guys from like the whole roster of Atlanta United that are like the most valued
Oh, like the
players in
highest.
MLS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I mean 3 of those guys are like young players. Is so or no, 4 is Barco, Sosa, Bello, and Miles. And I mean all guys that could, I mean, easily be, going to Europe, this off season. All 4 of them. But I mean, it's just I feel like this season wasn't really like the measuring bar, for Atlanta United. I mean, especially with everything that happened, the coaches being fired, everything that happened within the with the whole coaching or the whole Watergate scandal. But I mean, nah, you just really have to think that, you would want to leave a good image, right now during these playoffs and, just hope and, start a whole new, project, or not project, but try to emphasize things a little bit better than what they have been this past season. Especially with Pineda. I mean, going back to like the whole formation things that we were talking about. I mean, we saw that the first half against Cincinnati, saw it against Toronto, saw it against the Red Bulls. I mean, I don't know. He just doesn't see it, quick enough. Or I mean, I don't know, personally, but I would feel like he would have learned, from the mistakes that happened throughout this regular season that ended up costing Atlanta so many points. And I would feel like he has learned from that to where he's like, all right, come playoff time, we just can't risk making this mistake, or not on his part. And when it comes to the players' part, not bringing that intensity throughout the whole 90 minutes, because I feel like at times that's been an issue too. Like you feel all right, you have the game under control. It's the 70th, 80th minute, and all of a sudden, they just start slowing down, start, bringing the intensity down. And from the player's point, from the player's part, that just cannot happen. You just cannot have that, especially in a playoff game, away from home. You just cannot afford to give up, whether it's a 50-50 ball, whatever it is, you just cannot afford to give up, an easy ball. I mean, and from Gonzalo's Pineda point, like I said, I mean, you have to have learned from what happened this regular season.
Yeah. And you see him making changes. Like he's even putting like more subs in towards the end of the game, and it's like, okay, well, you're learning. Like when they were trying to kill that clock there in New York, I mean, you saw he was bringing guys on, and maybe it wasn't even the point, but it was just to throw a little bit extra time in on this game just to end it. And there's been a couple times where we probably should have done that, put some more guys in just to kill a little time. I mean, it's you know they'll give you a little bit of time off of it. I mean, it's not the full, but it does help, and it does stop the momentum of the other team. Um, and how we haven't talked about this. How about Jurgen Damm back-to-back appearances?
Yeah,
Um,
I know, right?
I, who knows if he's healthy? I think they're. I mean, they're both from Mexico, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting, but he actually had some chances. And his cross into the box for Joseph's goal wasn't good, but it started the play, right? It got deflected and then went up in the air, and that's when Joseph scored it. But Dom actually didn't look too bad. It'll be interesting to see, if this team's down, if he could come in, or even I know this isn't a FIFA video game, but like you're up a goal and you got some tired guys out there, putting him in and trying to get him the ball, just throw it down the field and see if he can get to it. I mean, those are things that he can do. So putting Campbell in, which was what we talked about a couple weeks ago, he's continuing to get Campbell in all these games, which was something else I want to talk about here. Was there? Darren Neal said there's been no talks of Miles Robinson transfers.
Hmm.
Now that could change here, especially after playing Mexico again, and um, what they got 3 games, so or 2 games, I think 2 games this period.
Yeah, two this winter.
So who knows what happens here? But if you keep Miles next year, and you have all these guys still in contract, wonder what Campbell's going to feel like, because I feel like he needs that opportunity to play. So it should be interesting to see what they end up doing with that back line. But then there was talks of Bello. There have been some rumors of some teams that have looked out for him. So that should be interesting. And then you have what's his face that's over at the Red Bulls right now.
Andrew Gutman.
Yeah, Gutman. Yeah. So I mean, he could just come and fit that spot, and he's having a really good season over there.
Yeah.
So, um, but it's going to be interesting to see overall. And I know MLS released a schedule or the schedule, the list of like free agents and like team like players have options, and like the option players are
Ooh,
Ambrose.
did you see that news that it said that it actually came out today too about the free agency that it said that for the first time they're gonna allow DP players, designated players to be free agents or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, I saw that and I'm like, that's something big, honestly. Like, for the league, because I know it says something. They're still working whether how the wages are gonna work, or whether it has to do with how much they're paying, like the highest salary that they have. Like they just can't pay that free agent. If I read correctly, that's what I said. I think that, they're just not going to be able to play that designated player, more than what they're already playing, like they're a top player at whatever team, they're trying to get them to. But I mean, that's big, I mean, especially with like all these tournaments, that are going to be coming up for MLS. You got to have a good roster, to try to get, at least something. You got US Open Cup, you're gonna have that Leagues Cup, you're gonna have MLS regular season. Depending on whether you make playoffs, you got that. I mean, it's a tight schedule, honestly, man. Like the
yeah,
next 2 years is gonna be a lot of soccer. And I mean, I would not be surprised if, like a lot of these, I mean, I'm not trying to be like bad luck here, but I mean, you will think that these guys are at least trying, or having good preparation, physical preparation. But I mean, the schedule that they're playing on, I mean, especially this year, I mean, I know there was some games where it was like they're playing Saturday and then they play Wednesday, then they play like Saturday or Sunday again. I mean, it was just like basically two games, like what, every 3 4 4 days. But
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be fun, but yeah, I mean, they've got to make those roster rules and changes. And I'm curious if they like at least announce them this offseason. Um, and I keep hearing like Mike Conti say this about like how this offseason, is going to be good for Joseph. But like, okay, let's say that this team went all the way to MLS Cup. That's what, December 10th or something like that. Um, like you get to December 10th, you're back in training camp in like a month and a week, like a month and a couple weeks. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if this offseason's actually really like it's short, which is nice for the fans, but, like, for someone like Joseph, who I think actually needs to, like, continue rehabbing his leg. I mean, his leg was immediately iced up, in Cincinnati. Like, it was the first thing I noticed when I ran down there, and he was, walking around, um, talking to all the fans and everything like that. It was interesting to see, but, like, we gotta get him healthy, but,
It's
like,
been like that, honestly. Like I've seen him seriously. Like every time he comes off, they always like right away he goes sit down and they just go like wrap up ice around his leg, around his knee.
I mean, that's what they did to Trey Young last year in the playoffs with his shoulder. They kept putting like some crazy contraption on his shoulder, to keep it loose. So, yeah, I mean, this schedule right now for the playoffs is very nice for Atlanta because if they win, they have a full week and 2 days until the next game. So if you got someone like Joseph or you have someone like Moreno who's dealing with an injury, it's very ideal, to be able to have that extra, that time off. And then you're also giving New England extra time off too, a couple extra days. So there's some teams like going on very short rest. Like I thought I saw that like if one team wins, they're gonna have to go and play the other team like on 4 days rest, 4 or 5 days rest.
Yeah, because one of the first rounds is like a Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe, and then like their next game, yeah, it's like a Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, it's like a midweek game, and then like you play the like right that following, that same weekend. I mean,
Yeah. So you're in everything that that you could want right now. It's set up to be good. But you got to beat the baseball New York FC. And they just lost one of their like good players for the year. He had like blood clots in his leg.
damn, really?
Yeah, I forget his name. But it was one of their midfielders, and yeah, he's out for the year. So he had blood clots. So that's terrible for him, but it's good for us.
Realistically, I mean, do you think that Atlanta is able to, pull off a win in New York against
Yes,
NYFC?
I think so.
I mean,
I
you have
guess.
the talent. I mean, like seriously, it's just going back to what I said, like, and to what I even said earlier. I mean, you just really have to bring the intensity 90 minutes, or I mean, even if you go to extra times, 120 minutes, whatever it takes. Like, you just cannot afford to give, easy, easy balls, easy passes. Like you just have to fight for it. Like it's just really, whether you want it more or not. And I was actually watching that Philadelphia against New York game, that last game of the regular season. And I remember man, what's the goalie's name? Sean Johnson. I remember he grabbed the mic and he started talking to the fans and talking about how um, they weren't done for the season yet. And, well, at that point, he didn't even knew that, that guy, Tati Castellanos, was actually going to win the Golden Boot because there was still like, other games going on and the West still had to play. And I remember him just being like so confident about what he said. And then, I mean, at that time, I already knew or the game was over. So we knew that, they were going to be playing Atlanta. We just didn't know when. So I'm just over here thinking, I'm like, man, this guy is like getting so cocky. Like he's just talking so confident. Like he just knows that for a fact, like they're going to win. But I mean, like, seriously, it's always been like a dogfight with NYFC, whether it's
Yeah,
up there or at Mercedes Benz. It's always been like that.
I mean, home field is huge. I don't think there's a single team in the league, except maybe I'd say Seattle, just because of how their stadium is set up, and how loud it gets there. I still think that it's the best home field advantage. It's the most garbage home field advantage, but it's still home field advantage for them. And most of your players haven't played there yet. There's most of these guys have never played in that stadium before, so um, how they're going to handle it? I'm sure they're trying to travel as soon as possible to practice on that field. But you go back and you watch that New York game that they blew with a minute left. I mean, that was the game that obviously would have reversed the roles and they would have got home field against them. But you go back and you look at that matchup, and Atlanta dominated it probably for 35. I know I'd say like 50, 55 minutes. It was all Atlanta United, and I think I think that was the game where like Bello had just a wide open opportunity and he just missed it. And I mean, it's going to be important. You know, someone like Moreno who and Barco who can get into tight spaces. That's going to be real important for them. Aruju is going to definitely be hurting a little bit because he's not going to have as much open field to start running. And he's very aggressive. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to set up with this. It's going to be interesting to see. But I think at this point, you got to throw all your best guys out there. And, if that's, sacrificing, taking Anton off and just leaving uh, Miles and Franco and, Lennon and Bello back there, I think that's fine. I think Sosa, if Sosa's back, that's really the game changer that you need.
Yeah, you
In the
definitely need that you need to, man. You need to have those two holding midfielders. You gotta have Rossetto and Sosa.
I'm curious with Rossetto how he develops in the next year or so, because he's gotten so much better, and now that Aruju's there and like that's his best bud, I'm like I can't see him going anywhere. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how he continues to develop, because he's a completely different guy than last season. I mean, I think he's
Even the
doing a good
beginning of the
job.
season.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, especially when Hyman comes back, because I haven't heard anything, but I would assume that it happened early enough, and as long as there was no complications like with Joseph, he should be ready for the beginning of the season, I would think. Um, I don't remember when he got hurt, but it was pretty early. I want to say it was like April.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it was, yeah.
so if he could come back, I mean, your midfield's pretty much cured there, and then you're gonna have Almada come in, and then I assume Barco's out. We're just assuming at this point that he's on his way out from here. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting spot here. The one person that wasn't on that list when I was looking at it of all the free agents, Jurgen Damm. And I don't think he's allowed. I know there's a weird rule. There's some weird rule, MLS rule. So I don't know if he's even eligible for that or whatever. But still, I mean, he's still the buyout option that has to happen this offseason. If you got to get rid of one guy, I know there's a lot of Hyman hate out there, and I think the Hyman hate's just because of how much money he makes.
Yeah,
Hyman's
pretty much.
Hyman's good. I liked Hyman a lot, especially towards the end of the season. I mean, he did some really good things in um, the Open Cup, and I think he scored in Campiona's Cup. I think he scored the first goal in
Yeah,
Campiona's
yeah.
Cup. So he was definitely restricted by Frank de Boer, and he was definitely restricted with Heinze. Pineda, who is, hopefully continues to be the offensive coach that we're hoping, he could do some damage there. If he's got some freedom to move up with everybody else, I think that's definitely a guy that it's almost like getting a free agent, getting a guy back, getting him in, and that would be amazing if he could come in and all of a sudden start, producing right away. I mean, we'll just have to see how he recovers from it.
Yeah. I mean, and even with Sosa, I mean, towards the end of the season, I mean, you've really seen him, like, kind of slow things down, just not be or have that form that he had in the beginning of the season. But like you said, that center part of the midfield, man, I mean, there's definitely going to be some competition there, preseason going into next year. Uh, I forgot I was gonna ask you something, but I definitely forgot. But going to what we were talking about, like, with like the whole, like, the transfers and like like the the squad value and all that. Do you think that, is ever gonna come down to a point where Atlanta, just doesn't spend as much money and just tries to develop and tries to, basically somewhat like, like a FC Dallas or a Philadelphia, or, that type of team that, is more, focus, I guess you could say, in like, academy players and stuff like that, and, not bringing in like these big star names or like young, promising stars, that are, have a bright future going into Europe or something like that.
I don't think Arthur Blank's gonna go cheap on us at any time soon. Um, but I think that if you're anybody, and I noticed just by watching TV, and I'm sure they know it, but winning equals ratings, and winning equals attendance, and winning equals merch. And in order to be profitable in MLS, you need to win. and Atlanta had, I haven't seen the attendance numbers. I know they had like I think that they had like one of the bigger crowds that the last home game of the season. Like they had
Yeah.
like the highest like crowd I think in the world for like that weekend or whatever. But like you gotta, if you want to continue to get fans in there and create the best atmosphere, you're gonna have to spend money. I mean, and the rumor of the transfer fee, I forget what it was, like in the 20 millions or something like that for Amada. Um, yeah, I mean, they're looking to cash in on that investment, and he wants to cash out after a year apparently, which we'll see how that goes. But you got to invest in guys. So and they're doing that. We just saw them invest in Aruju. I mean, that was a big pickup for them. So I think that unfortunately to think about this, but in a couple of years, probably that Joseph's probably gonna be out here sooner than later. Whether it's by choice or just you know winding down, we'll see how if he continues to be Joseph, and maybe next year is his full year, playing again. But yeah, it's I don't think so. The Falcons have never been a cap team. I mean, they've never like have spent the least amount. They've always been close to the cap. I mean, they're basically been over the cap for years. So the Falcons have always not been afraid to spend money on players. So, and I just don't see Arthur doing that. I think when he goes all in on something, he goes all in. So I think that he wants to continue to keep his team, at the top of everything. So, the only way you really do that, I mean, despite, you look at what Colorado, who like spent no money on DPs and finished what number one.
Yeah.
Uh, this is a weird ass season, man. Like, how does Atlanta not win for 3 months and it's like a couple points out of second place? Like, that's ridiculous.
I mean, you look at the LA teams, man. They're not even there. I mean, that's crazy. You would
And
think a
Texas.
team, you would think, yeah, Texas, all of them, yeah. I mean, you would think that LAFC being the team that they were. I mean, even last year in 2019, where they blew all the records away. I mean, you would think that they will at least make the playoffs, But I mean, they really struggle this year. I mean, until I'm hearing, I mean, Bob Bradley's supposedly going back to Toronto.
Yeah, well, and you got to remember with uh the Galaxy. I mean, Chicharito would start off at like a historic rate at the beginning, like he was scoring left and right, and then he got
Yeah.
hurt. So I mean, they were in almost an Atlanta United Joseph situation. They couldn't have anybody scoring goals. Carlos Vela is probably on his way out. Um, so you've got a lot of guys that like some big time, coaches moving. You've got some guys possibly leaving MLS. It's going to be a very quick, but should be a very interesting um, off season
You
for
know,
sure.
yeah, when you say about coaches, another one too from the Eastern Conference, the one that I see definitely leaving, Caleb Porter from the Crew. They also didn't make it. I mean, it was like terrible this season for
I
them,
don't think he
honestly.
leaves.
You don't?
I don't think he goes. They had a lot of injuries too, and like they weren't always the big names, but their depth. They didn't have a. I mean, even though everybody said this was the deepest team in MLS like history, how deep they were, they were constantly injured. They had constantly injured players. So I don't know if I think that he stays. I mean, it'd be nice if he left because then maybe we can somehow send a "P.S. I love you, Nagby, come back" letter to him
I
and
know.
trade back for it. But yeah, I mean, it's it is what it is. I mean, but you're going to see MLS change a lot here in the next couple of years, so it should be pretty interesting with Leagues Cup growing, and I feel at least that this from when I started watching it, it feels like it's just grown so much. Like every time some of these big guys like Zelerion when he came in, like that was a big thing, and then that was a big thing for the Crew because the Crew weren't spending money. Like I think that broke their transfer fee by like a lot. So it's nice to see that. Who knows if other teams are going to be able to jump on? You got Charlotte next year. We'll see. How much where they throw their money at. We'll see what happens with Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's been a wreck. I mean, they've got more. They've had more coaches in 3 years than I have fingers on one hand. So I mean, they've just been a disaster. Uh,
Charlotte is gonna be interesting, like you say, especially given the fact that Nashville is gonna be gone now from the Eastern Conference and they're gonna be in the West now. So yeah, Charlotte's gonna be like that other, I guess you could say like the closest rival for Atlanta other than Orlando. Um, but it should be, I mean, I don't think personally, I mean, and I hope it doesn't come to that point, to where it's like one of these teams like how Atlanta or even LAFC, to where there were expansion teams and they've had some, I guess you could say, immediate, success. And well, more of Atlanta than LAFC because they got silverware to show for, but there are these teams that have picked up like a lot of momentum in the early years and basically have gotten to the point to where like you just have these high expectations for them. I personally don't think, and neither do I want Charlotte to be that team, but like you say, you do want, in a way, for things, to keep growing because, as you do want the league to keep on growing and it has. I mean, seriously, I mean, I seriously remember watching, like 2011, LA Galaxy, like Donovan playing, Robbie Keane, like, all these guys, and everything was just so different back then to how things are now. I mean, we're talking about a 10-year difference, and the league is not that old. I mean, seriously, it's as old as me. I'm just 26, but even so, like you see like that periodical change. Five like from how it was from 5 years ago to when Atlanta first just came on the scene. And how things are gonna be 5 years from now, they're gonna be way different, So it could only keep getting better, for the league and for the fans. And I mean, I know it's been a lot of talk. I said this personally in the last podcast that I said, but soccer gets so much hate, man, in this country for some reason. And I get it, because it's not the biggest sport. There's football, there's basketball, baseball, hockey, I mean, you just got all these other sports, but yet again, what people don't see is the fact that, soccer is the biggest and like the most played sport, watch everything, like seriously, in the world. And finally, you've got that, I guess you could say MLS or like the whole country itself, coming into like, this culture, to or like this sport and, finally being able to like, understand it and being able to play it, get the family engaged in it and everything. Like, it's big, for like I said, for everybody, for the league, for the fans, for everybody. And personally, I mean, I've I've liked what I've seen from MLS. Seriously, I remember a couple of years ago, like I said, even 5 years ago, everybody was just talking about how this was a retirement league, and it did seem like it, because all these European stars, after they didn't have anything left. They just
yeah,
came here to MLS. That's all they did. They just came here to MLS and you know got their paycheck and retired, and that was it. But now, I mean, I even saw some stat. I don't remember the specific numbers, but it showed something like that. To how the age difference or the age average was for a MLS player 5 or 10 years ago to what it is now. And I mean, yeah, before it was like I said, I don't remember, but it was like somewhere like close to the 30s, like 28, 29, and now it's like 24, 25. So I mean, you look at it and things are starting to change and it's for the better. I mean, and who knows? I mean, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but I mean, MLS one day is gonna compete with the big leagues. I mean, it's already starting to compete with the big leagues here in America. And soon enough, it's gonna start competing, with, you know, probably not the Premier League or, all, with all these huge teams, but I mean, the amount of talent that there is here on MLS. I mean, you just can't deny the fact that teams are doing things well. They're having good they're doing good investments basically. Not like like you said, we're using all of them as an example, but like Cincinnati. I mean, it just has been that one franchise where things have just been bad from day one.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But I
Well,
mean,
we'll see.
you would think hopefully, things start getting better for, MLS and for everybody else, man. But all we really hope for is for Atlanta United win November 21st. That's all I'm really hoping for.
It's all we can. It's all we can talk about. So I guess we could talk about it next week and try to figure out what's going to happen and keep an eye on practice, and hopefully everybody stays healthy. That's the last thing you need is anybody injured, and uh yeah, just hope for the best. But I'm going to go to
Yeah.
bed now because this COVID vaccine has beat the hell out of me.
All right, man. All right, and thank you guys for the ones that were watching and the ones that are gonna be watching this later on as well. Thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to FILA Sports Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. All the social media. Thank you guys for your time, man. All right, Tommy, we're gonna see you next time, man. Thank you for being here with us, man.
Hey, thank you.
All right, man.
See ya.
All right, dude.